Welcome back, everybody, to Two Guys and a Stack of Comics. My name is Reed. Along with me, as always, is Mike. Mike, DC All In is fully kind of going. We will sort of share our thoughts on some of the mainline titles here in a couple of videos. But what we wanted to make sure of is this absolute universe. That's the big launching point, finally, like an ultimate universe for DC. We saw Batman come out about 2 weeks ago, and the second of the three books kicking that off, Absolute Wonder Woman. Number one issue, you got the cover here from Jim Lee, and then you got the main cover there. I think that's Hayden Sherman on the main cover for the
Okay.
book came out. So, second part, the Trinity of DC kind of getting this reboot. We'll have Superman, I think, in 2 weeks when his first issue comes out. But Wonder Woman number one came out. What we're going to do here, we're going to do spoilers on the issue, so I'll kind of tag that in the video as well. We're just going to give our thoughts overall on the changes that have been made to Wonder Woman, our overall thought on the comic book, and kind of where this is coming from. Mike, I'll kind of lay out the main changes for folks who don't have any ideas of what's going on so far, and then we'll get your reaction to it. So in this universe, Diana, no Themyscira, not raised as an Amazon. She is dropped off by Apollo to Circe, who is living on an island, the island of Hell, I think is what they call it. They drop her off. The majority of the comic book is Circe kind of raising Diana. The Amazons did something that offended the gods, and so basically no one can say the word Amazon. It's like been banned, except for obviously Diana, who can say it. Diana in this universe, a little similar to the main universe Diana, in that she has seemingly all the same strengths and abilities that she has. Although because she was raised by Circe, she has a magical element to her as well, which so she's seems to have the warrior skills of an Amazon and all those abilities with the addition of magic. They do have a couple different costume looks for it. I'll kind of just show a couple of the panels. I did think this was kind of at least a pretty cool page of showing her new costume and everything here. I do think the art's a little flat in the issue, but overall, not a bad costume design. Largely, there's like an attack of what looks like kind of these winged demon things. And she's defending this gateway city, is where I believe they have her located in this. There's a little bit of action, and the majority of the issue is a lot of character building of her being raised. There's I think, about 8 pages in the middle where you have these double panel kind of things across all of it, just showing her childhood and her growing up with Circe. So a little bit of an interesting premise. I mean, obviously the Themyscira piece is gone, the costume is gone, magic's a new addition to Wonder Woman. Obviously, she's always had like the magical lasso, but she appears to be more almost like Zatanna or something like that, where she can actually do like spells and magic and things. So Mike, all those changes that you see before we kind of get into the quality of the book, how does that hit you? As I know you're a bigger Wonder Woman fan than I am, as the character. I think you've read a lot more individual issues of Wonder Woman than I have. Just the changes, how does that hit you as a DC Comics fan and a Wonder Woman fan?
Well, I was just kind of wondering, like, what's Jeff Bezos going to do in this universe if you can't say the word Amazon? So he's kind of like, it must have wrote him out of existence.
Yeah,
Um,
the
you
All
know,
In and Absolute Universe are just giving you so many pun jokes, man. It's not.
um, I think. Okay, here's what I think. I'll ride with ride with Diana Prince in this universe, and I love the skeleton Pegasus.
Yeah, decent design on that.
That's kind of a really cool design. It kind of draws you in. I know not everybody's a fan, but I'm a big fan of the meaty backstory.
Mhm.
So if you can give me, and usually a good writer will drop little, important things here along the way in a big meaty backstory. So I'm looking forward to how some of that raising by Circe plays out in future issues. Here's what I think: it's going to be a short-lived series. I'll check it out,
Okay.
uh, but I'll put it on my sub list. I like the first issue. I like where it's going. I'll roll with it. I like this DC try and do things as long as it's a good story, which this one is a decent story. I'll roll with it. Yeah, it's weird that she has like magic powers. Um, you pulled Themyscira out from under her. That's a little bit strange. We'll have to learn what her, moral compass is like in this version of her, because she's all about hope um, and
Especially people, and yeah.
love and yes, and all those really great aspirational things that she tries to bring into the world outside of Themyscira. So that is like her core, right? And so now that's kind of gone. Like, what's her new moral compass going to be? But I'm down for the flying skeleton horses. That's really cool. And then the new outfit looks kind of cool. She's huge, right? She's like
Yeah, I mean,
the size
there's a
of.
couple panels where they show like she's walking by soldiers and things, and yeah, it looks like she definitely dwarfs.
So I have to harken back to Darwin Cook because he got a lot of flack for drawing Wonder Woman bigger than Superman in the New Frontier.
Yeah.
But this seems like, they went and ran with that model and maybe even amped it up a little bit. I think that's cool because, she is a magical being from, this magical place where, Amazons were typically thought of as taller and stronger. So I like that they're playing with that model. She should be intimidating, especially, uh, because she's fighting for love and hope and all those good things that Themyscira needs, and she needs to have an impressive presentation. But who is she in this book? We don't know yet. Who's she going to grow up to be? Um, we'll see. So yeah, I'm kind of intrigued. I think Wonder Woman fans are going to be like, wait a minute. But then you've got to also go, wait a minute, this is just a short series. We're
Well,
still going to
these
have.
are all intended to be ongoing books, and so we'll see what happens with it. If this goes, I think every DC fan, right, when we see a new initiative, um,
It's
yeah,
not going to be
everything's
an
an
ongoing book.
ongoing
It's
until it's
not
not,
going.
right?
It's not going to be an ongoing book.
Here's what I'll say about it. This was the book I was the least excited for of the three. Simply, I like Wonder Woman as a character. I'll be honest though, there's very few runs that have ever intrigued me enough to buy Wonder Woman's comic books. I've got some older George Perez kind of
George
run stuff
Perez.
that I've had, and that's mainly because my wife wanted to read some Wonder Woman comics, and those were the ones I remember being good. There's a couple things that so overall, if I had to give the issue a grade, I think it's like a B. I think it was okay. I think the biggest thing that happens with these absolute comic books that are going to be different than Batman, I think there's twofold issues that it runs into. One is that the absolute Batman, the strongest selling point that that comic book has is you have Scott Snyder, a good writer from Batman who knows that character writing that. And so while things are different, I think that's the main selling point is okay, it's Scott Snyder, right? He's written a good Swamp Thing comic book, he wrote a great Batman run. There's some excitement behind that. Kelly Thompson is a writer I struggle with, and she's the writer on Wonder Woman. And that I haven't read a ton of her work, but she tends to do a couple things that bug me in modern comic books, and that is the characters in her books always end up kind of being the same, right? When she writes a book, I remember she wrote I think it was an X-Men book with Rogue and Gambit, and then she wrote a Deadpool book, and the female characters in both the X-Men book and in the Deadpool book kind of seemed exactly the same. It almost seemed like a self-insert sort of character kind of thing of this is my personality and so my characters will talk like this, and I really did not like her Deadpool run. So for me it's hard to get like, oh cool, a Kelly Thompson comic book, just because there's been a few that I was really excited for that she was the writer of that drove me off as a reader. That said, I think the first issue was okay. I do think there was some cool action elements in it. I do think the backstory is kind of interesting, and I do appreciate that some time is spent showing her being raised and how that changed and all that, and that we really didn't get so much of that in the Batman book. The Batman book
Right?
was more Alfred narrating that and kind of giving us that. And so I do think some of that was interesting. My biggest, the excitement level, I don't have a ton of belief in the same way that like, oh man, Scott Snyder's on a book as opposed to this. I think the other thing that's kind of weird is the entire purpose of this absolute universe, as I understood it, was they were trying to take away some of the things from the heroes. And so what's interesting is I guess the Amazonian kind of sisterhood and Themyscira being taken, I guess that's what's removed from her. But she kind of has all of her own abilities plus magic. And it's like, so with Batman, the clear disadvantage of Batman that makes the absolute universe a little bit different is he doesn't have the money. Right. So this is a Bruce Wayne who's going to be a little more brutal, a little more visceral, a little more action oriented, and he's got to be a little more inventive
But
with
he's
what's
the
around
same
him.
guy. But he's
But
the
it's the same
same
guy,
guy.
right? Diana, yes, this is definitely Diana. And they show some scenes that even the kid, she's very merciful and things like that. So maybe that will build. But it's like, well, she gets all of her old powers, plus she's got magic now. It's like that doesn't seem like a huge disadvantage as opposed to like Batman losing his money.
Well, for
Um,
Wonder Woman fans, not having the sisterhood behind
yeah,
her
and
is a
maybe that hits
huge
more.
disadvantage.
Maybe that
Um,
hits more for Wonder Woman fan. For me, I
yes.
just looked at it as an individual character. If I'm following this character's journey, he's dropped into Batman's world. He is very much, hey, all the Wayne tech and all that stuff doesn't seem to be there. Doesn't have Wayne Enterprises. He has to have a job, that kind of stuff. This is like, well, she gets all her powers plus magic. It's like that's a weird choice by Darkseid in creating this universe to give her more abilities. And again, maybe there will be a cost to that. Maybe there's other things that are gone. Um, Overall, I thought the issue was okay, and that's the most. I think that's the most worrisome part about this book for me was this was not a bad comic book, but it was just eh. It was very much. It reminded me a lot of DC All In #1, where I think some of the stuff was supposed to be grand, and some of the stuff was supposed to be like, oh, how cool. And as a reader, it was like that was okay. Like it wasn't bad. I don't regret reading it. I'll buy the next issue because I'm interested in this absolute universe and I want to give it some time. I think the thing is nothing in it resonated with me where I was like, man, that's a really cool wrinkle, or I can't wait to see how that plays out. And I think that's the thing that they did with Batman that I think was so interesting is the new version of Alfred and what's that going to work out? How does that work? And what is this relationship with his mom? There was enough breadcrumbs, sort of similar to Ultimate Spider-Man, where like, hey, Uncle Ben's alive, right? There's things that as a reader you read and you're like, man, I have to see how that plays out. With this,
Well,
I guess the Amazon's disappearing is the thread that you're supposed to be like. It just didn't seem to have the hook that Absolute Batman did.
it's a big deal for her not to have Themyscira and her mother and her sisterhood behind her. So that is kind of a big deal. It'd
Yeah,
be interesting. It almost like if Kelly Thompson might be kind of thinking like, well, maybe some part of the story, maybe her journey is her way back, and she might find some surviving sisters or something.
yeah,
But with when you got to do a meaty backstory, and I love a meaty backstory, it's usually a slow issue. But you can put in some action in the middle to make it interesting and drop some, like you said, some threads in there that they can pick up later. And I'm sure she did. We just don't know what those threads are yet. And kind of
yeah.
imagine. But yeah, I'll buy the next issue and see where it goes. I don't think it's going to be a long-term book, but you never know. You
Yeah, I
never
mean, I'm
know.
rooting for it to work. And again, I will say this. I don't want to act like I'm really negative on the book. I think it was fine. I have not picked up a mainline Wonder Woman comic book couple years. I mean, I think when the New 52 started, I might have grabbed a couple issues when that happened. Her runs tend to just not be interest stories. I love her as a function in the Justice League. I think she's a really valuable member there. Her own individual, and I'm probably not the target audience for that book, so I don't really hold that against Wonder Woman. I don't really do reviews of Wonder Woman comic books that I don't read or anything like that because it's not. I love the character. I think the character's cool. Obviously, you never mind seeing Wonder Woman when she's shown on screen because typically they get some good looking actions as a player and everything like that. I just overall, I think it was a decent first issue. I'm in for a couple issues. I think another thing that DC's got to stop doing, and I know it's a #1 issue, and I know this happens with everybody. I like Hayden Sherman's art. Hayden Sherman, it's not bad. It's a little flat, but it's not bad. But when you have Jim Lee do the cover and it looks so much cooler, that's a huge problem. And I think that's one of the things is when you see this design of the character, that looks really cool. She looks like Diana just with more armor and a cooler sword. And you're like, okay, that's a
That's
cool
a
looking comic book.
that's a big
This one
lady
again,
with a big sword.
nothing again.
Yeah,
And I get it. It's Jim Lee. He's an industry legend. I just
yeah.
think on the Batman book, the Jim Lee cover looked cooler, but the inside art from Jagoda really still looked cool and dynamic. I think with this, it was just a little flat in the action scenes and things like that. And again, it's a first issue. Maybe they'll figure some things out. Like you said, they have to get into the backstory. They've got to explore these things. I do think the one thing that will make or break the book really is, I think from the Batman angle, there's a clear purpose right off the bat of the thing of this is a different Bruce Wayne, different circumstances. And so I kind of saw the long-term layout of what that comic's going to be in the first issue. This one, I will say, I didn't see anything like that. I was like, ooh, long term, that's what's interesting, or this is intriguing. We'll see how it plays out. I mean, obviously, I'm sure that they had some sort of plan when they put this together, but I can't give it a bad review. I just can't give it like a man, go pick this book up. And I do think the changes, I don't know, Wonder Woman's relationship with magic is different because I know the lasso is different. I will say if she has like Cersei's magical abilities and stuff like that, like almost like a witch kind of character instead, that seems to be a bigger deviation than like Bruce Wayne. And that's one of those things where you do wonder how far can you stretch the character where it's no longer the character. And I do know there were people who said, hey, the first Batman issue, it didn't feel as much like Bruce Wayne. But I would say he's still a kid who saw his parents die, still has his knowledge, still has his tech, still has his fighting ability. The detective skills are not as sharp, but there's still a good, I'd say, if you did like a Venn diagram of absolute Batman and Batman, there's a good portion of the character that's in the middle of overlapping. Wonder Woman, I do wonder with how much they changed, how much of it's the same. And I wonder for a lot of the Wonder Woman fans out there if the changes will bug them quite a bit because it is a very different story from that angle.
Yeah, it seems like a different character they're building. But please, fans, let us know, Wonder Woman fans. If you're a Wonder Woman fan, please comment below. Tell us what you thought of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Let us know what you guys' thoughts below. If you picked this thing up, did you enjoy it? If you didn't, what was your reasoning that you didn't enjoy it? I would say for both of us, it's probably I'd say we probably get a B. It's interesting. We'll keep reading the next couple issues. We're looking forward to the Superman debut that happens here in a bit. But let us know as always what you think, folks. Have a great rest of your day. God bless you, and we'll catch you in our next video.
Thanks, everybody.